Hi everybody. So today I'm going to talk about writer's block, what it means. I categorize the writer's block into four types. And I also will talk about them and will provide some solutions to address those issues. So writer's block, according to Stephen Presker, define the term as the artificial construct. So it's artificially made that basically justified a discipline problem. And he said a commitment to a regular work schedule will help people overcome barriers like perfectionism, procrastination, and unrealistic expectations. I also look into the Cambridge definition, which defines the term as the condition of being unable to create a piece of written work because something in the writer's mind prevent them from doing it, from writing. So I identify four types of writer's block. The first one, I called it fear of failure. When I started writing, sometimes I heard a tiny little voice, like maybe tiny me, talking about like, who cares about my writing? Like, who's gonna buy my book, right? Nobody's gonna be reading my book anyway. So like, just stop. Or critiquing, my writing, like, the storyline doesn't work. Characters wasn't realistic. And before I even finish writing anything, right? So when I hear those voices, I sometimes trying to think where I heard those comments from. Usually it's not from me, it's from someone else, right? Usually that's what it is. So this might be also a sign of we are overthinking, or sometimes our self-doubts coming out to prevent us from accomplishing the writing. So my solution for the fear of failure, or if you addressing these little voices, is first of all, I'm going to take some deep breath and then think about like, who said this to me, right? And then maybe actually I want to talk back to these negative voices. Usually can silence the voices, and it also can remind ourselves that we are our own like worst enemy. So sometimes just relax, take a deep breath, and talk back to them. The second issue is the issue of perfectionism. This one I remember vividly when I tried to write my first novel when I was 15. And I would write, I would start writing for a few days, and then and I know that it's not good, it's not great. Like 15, what do you expect? I read a lot when I was a kid. But I know that it's not great. And then I just stopped writing, and I just deleted the whole thing. Of course I didn't know that every writers are going through the same process of write the first draft, then they revise and revise and revise again, before they also edit the sentence level. So the solution for perfectionism is, Anne Lamott said it best in her best-selling book Bird by Bird, that allow yourself to write a shitty first draft or a crummy first draft, and then come back to revise and edit on the subsequent draft. That is usually the way to go for it. And so if or another solution, if people find themselves work on their computers and reworking on that paragraph or that sentence or that conversation, that phrase, maybe if it's too much, like if people find that they spend so much time reworking on those sections over and over again, my suggestion is maybe try to write it in a pen and paper, because when crossing out with pen and paper, it's kind of like you have to rewrite. I have to rewrite over and over again. It's get tired. At some point, I'm just gonna be like, okay, fine. Let it go. We'll come back to this later on when I, rewrite it in my computer later on, right? So that would be my suggestions for perfectionism. For the third one, procrastination. So this is probably number one issue that many of us encounters, and it comes in many shape, size, and form. Sometimes I would tell myself that, I need to read this particular book before I can write this particular story, because I need some background information of the character, or I need to go visit this particular spot, or get the scene correctly described, or accurately described, I should say. Or I have to get this particular character correctly. Let me do some more research on how they dress, or those kind of details. And this is usually is procrastination in its truest form, and so it could be tainted with something else. So most of the time, procrastination is a combination of how we feel, like, do we fear of, writing this particular story, or have some self-doubt about this particular piece of writing, or simply just overthinking. To overcome the procrastination, recognizing why we are procrastinating would be a good place to start. Think about, like, why do I have to read this particular book before I begin? So I could just start writing, and then I can come back and either correct the information or leave that particular section blank for now until I finish writing and add that information into that section. Like, that would be another way to go about it. I don't need to finish reading like that book. I can work on some other aspects of the story that I can write before I can finish this. So I think be our own detective and investigate what is happening, why we are trying to not working on, our piece of writing would be one way to address the procrastination. Last but not least, the fourth one is, having an unrealistic expectation. I'll be the first to admit that I am also, guilty of this one as well. I tell myself that I'll write my first draft in 3 months. That's not gonna happen, because I have a full-time job. I only usually spend an hour writing every day in the morning, so I have to be realistic. Maybe 6 months or maybe like 8 months is actually more of realistic, for my timeline to finish my first draft, right? Sometimes if we combine unrealistic expectations with issues of perfectionism, that is a demon that we have to really fight, and I can tell you this, it is a losing battle. The solution for this one is know ourselves. I know myself that I won't be able to write for for 6 hours every day, or 3 hours every day. I can only write 1 hour every day. So 8 months might be a more realistic goal to finish my first draft. Maybe I need to set a smaller milestone and be flexible with whatever that I have set, right? So for example, I might say, I can only write an hour a day, or I want to write, 10,000, 1,000 words every day, right? But I may not be able to do that, and I might have consistently wrote for 2 weeks, and I know that my average of those 2 weeks is about 700 words. Maybe 1,000 words per day is unrealistic goal at the moment. Maybe I should stick to like 700 for now, and then I might come back to reevaluate and maybe increase the word limit, each day, or decrease depending on how busy I am at the moment. So be flexible with that, could be really helpful, so that I feel accomplished and I feel motivated to come back and write some more tomorrow. So I hope like these are helpful to you, and let me know in the comments what other writer's block issues that you have run into, and maybe we can brainstorm together to find some new solutions. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.